You know, we all have our own issues, right? But what happens when those issues start to, well, get a little out of hand? When something like depression makes it tough to even get out of bed, or anxiety just feels like it's running the show. Today, we're going to take a look at the world of psychotherapy, a really powerful way to work through these kinds of troubles and, really grow as a person. And to help us see how it works, we're going to follow someone's story. So let's meet Bernice. Her struggles are totally real, and they're starting to mess with her self-worth, her job, her life, the whole shebang. She's decided it's time to get some professional help, and lucky for her, there are a lot of options out there. We're going to follow along with her and see what getting help can actually look like. So what is she actually looking for? It's called psychotherapy, and it's not just one single thing. It's more like a whole toolbox of different techniques that a therapist can use to help someone like Bernice. The big goals? To figure things out, overcome problems, and ultimately, to grow. But how does it all work? Well, that really depends on the approach. Generally speaking, you can group most psychological treatments into 4 major approaches. Think of them like different maps for understanding what's going on in someone's head. And here they are, the big 4 we're going to dive into: psychodynamic, existential-humanistic, behavioral, and cognitive. Each one offers a pretty unique path for Bernice. So let's start with the one that believes you have to look backward to move forward. First up, psychodynamic therapy. The core idea here is kind of simple. To really get a handle on your struggles today, you've got to do a little digging into your past. It's almost like you're becoming a historian of your own life story. The main goal here is self-insight. It's like putting together the pieces of a puzzle to see the full picture of yourself. The theory is that by bringing buried feelings and unconscious thoughts to the surface, maybe through things like free association or talking about dreams, you can finally understand the deep roots of why you do what you do. So for someone like Bernice, a therapist might notice what she isn't talking about. This is something they call resistance, these little mental blocks that hint at a deeper anxiety. By gently pointing it out, the therapist is trying to see if there is an unconscious connection there. Maybe, just maybe, there's a link between her mom and her fear of flying that she's never even considered. Now, it's really important to make a distinction here. When you hear this stuff, you might just think Freud, right? Well, psychoanalysis is Freud's original, very intensive theory. Psychodynamic therapy is more like the modern-day family of theories that came from his work. It still looks at the unconscious in your early life, but it's a bit broader, and usually not quite as intense. It's what you're much more likely to find today. Okay, let's switch gears completely. Not every type of therapy wants to dig around in your past. Some are way more interested in what's happening right here, right now, and what you're capable of in the future. Welcome to the world of existential-humanistic therapy. The big idea here is that this is all about promoting growth, not just curing an illness. Humanistic therapists believe that people are inherently good and have this amazing capacity for self-acceptance and reaching their full potential. Their job is to help you unlock it. And you'll notice they often prefer the word client over patient. A guy named Carl Rogers was a huge figure in this field, and his client-centered therapy has a pretty clear method. The therapist's job is to create this incredibly safe, non-judgmental space by being empathetic, genuinely accepting, and using what's called active listening, where they echo back your feelings to make sure they get it. It's all about helping you feel truly heard and valued. So instead of digging into Bernice's childhood, a humanistic therapist would zoom in on the here and now. They might suggest that her depression is coming from a disconnect with her real feelings. So by asking her to explore what she's feeling in that very room, the goal is to help her reconnect with her genuine self and find the strength to face those difficult emotions head-on. All right, our last 2 major schools of thought are often a team, a real power couple. Behavioral and cognitive therapies shift the focus once again, this time to our actions and our thoughts. The idea is pretty straightforward. If you can change what you do and how you think, you can absolutely change how you feel. Behavior therapy is super direct. A behaviorist would say to Bernice, look, understanding why you're afraid of flying is interesting, but it doesn't stop the panic attack when you're at the gate. The problem behavior, the fear itself, is the real issue. So the goal is to basically retrain your brain and replace that unwanted behavior. So for her fear of flying, a therapist might use a technique called systematic desensitization. It sounds complicated, but it's not. First, Bernice would learn how to truly relax her body. Then, step by little step, she'd be exposed to her fear, thinking about it, looking at photos, sitting on a plane, all while staying in that relaxed state. The idea is to slowly but surely replace that panic response with a calm one. Now, behavior therapy often gets a huge boost from its partner, cognitive therapy. So if behavioral therapy targets what you do, cognitive therapy targets how you think. It zeroes in on those negative, self-defeating thoughts that can get stuck on a loop in our heads. Let's think about Bernice's test anxiety. She's probably fallen into a pattern of what's called catastrophic thinking. This one single thought, this belief that one bad test will ruin her entire life, is what's fueling all that anxiety and depression. And in that moment, it feels 100% true. A cognitive therapist isn't just going to let a thought like that slide. They'll actively challenge it. By asking these kinds of questions, they help Bernice step back and see that her thoughts aren't always facts. The goal is to help her see that changing what she says to herself is an incredibly powerful way to manage her anxiety. In this case, it really is the thought that counts. Of course, therapy isn't always a one-on-one thing, just you and a therapist in a room. Sometimes the most powerful healing can happen when you're with other people, which brings us to group and family therapy. In group therapy, just being with other people who get it can be incredibly healing. It's this powerful, powerful reminder that you are not alone in what you're going through. Family therapy is a little different. It looks at the whole family as a single system. The idea is that an individual's problems don't happen in a vacuum. They affect and are affected by the entire family dynamic. So there you have it, from digging into the past with psychodynamic therapy to focusing on the present with humanistic therapy and changing actions and thoughts with behavioral and cognitive therapies. We've seen that there are so many different, valid ways to heal. Each one offers a unique lens and a different set of tools to help someone like Bernice find a path forward. Which, of course, brings us to the biggest question of all. With all these different theories and all these different methods, does any of this stuff actually work? Well, that's a whole other can of worms. But what's totally clear is that if you're looking for help, the options out there are more varied and more sophisticated than ever before.